Welcome back to my sewing room. Today is going to be all about cross stitch, and this is my very first floss tube, so I'm pretty excited about that. And I'm going to talk to you about Stitch-Tober and show you my lineup. So what Stitch-Tober is something that I do with Kimberly at Fat Quarter Shop, and last year was our first one. This is our second annual Stitch-Tober, and what it is it starts on October 1st. And we just stitch all the things fall. You can stitch for the whole month of October, or you can stitch until Thanksgiving or whenever you want to start. But it just starts October 1st, and you can stitch 1 or 2 projects, or you can do a bunch. I have started with 17, knowing that I'm not going to finish them all during Stitch-Tober, and a few of them I've already started stitching on. And so I've just added them into my lineup of my Stitch-Tober, and so I will be showing you those. But one of the things I wanted to show you first was my Stitch Cards F that has these 4 designs. They all come on different cards, and then the patterns on the other side. And I'll be doing a project along with Kimberly with this, and so I'm going to leave a link in the description. And you'll have to drop down to the menu to see that description. And you can go to Kimberly's FlossTubes where she talks all about it and where you can get a free download for the border on this. So this is one of my projects, and I'll be stitching on my overcast 25 count Lugana. So that's one project. So when I say I have 17 projects, that means I'm going to have 3 days approximately, because I'm stitching until Thanksgiving to stitch on each project. And so I'll just see how much I can get done in those 3 days. So that's what's going on with Stitch-Tober, the explanation. Let's just get into some of my projects. So the next one I'm going to be doing, and I'm also going to be doing this along with Kimberly as well, is my latest pattern called Pumpkins for Sale. And the sample of that for this cover is already finished, and it was done by Denise at Fat Quarter Shop, and she did it on barley, the 25 count Lugana. And so I thought that I would show you something different. I've had a lot of people ask me if you can tea dye my Lugana cloth, and yes you can. So a few days ago, I did a little tutorial for you that I'll insert after this, but I wanted to show you that here's my cloth right here, how it looks after it dried, and now I'm ready to stitch on it. And let me show you how I tea dyed that, and then we'll come back and I'll talk more about this project. Here I am in my kitchen getting ready to tea dye. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about my patterns and about my vintage cloth. Now my cross stitch patterns are published by It's So Emma, which is a division of Fat Quarter Shop. And my cross stitch fabrics, which is under the name Vintage Cloth, is done by Zweigart and distributed by Riley Blake Designs. I think it's going to be really fun to take this piece of barley 25 count and vintage it up a little bit. Okay, so I've cut a piece from the barley that's 16 by 19, which allows for 3 inches all the way around the stitching, and then I've went ahead and zigzagged the edges. I usually just use an old mixing bowl, and I just use black tea. Doesn't matter the brand. I use the same old wooden spoon that I've used for years. I have another small bowl to hold the tea bags, and then a tray. Now this is a really easy process. I'm simply just giving my cloth a tea bath. I'm pouring in here about 6 cups of boiling water from the tea kettle. I want to have enough water to cover my cloth. I could probably get away with 4 cups, but I figure it's better to have too much than not enough. And so because I have about 6 cups of water, I'm going to be using 6 tea bags. If you don't want your fabric to turn out really dark, you could just maybe do 4 tea bags and, you know, it will turn out lighter. I really enjoy the process of tea dyeing. I used to sew dolls in the 80s, and I would sell them through Gardner Village. And after I had my doll pieces all cut out, I would tea dye them and distress them with the tea bags like I'm going to show you. And I just love how it aged everything automatically. Okay, so now through the magic of editing, my tea bags have been steeping for about 10 minutes. And I'm just going to take them out of the water. And I'm going to squeeze a little bit of the water out of them using the wooden spoon so I don't burn my fingers, but I don't want to completely get all of the water out of the tea bags. I want them to stay moist because of what I'm going to do with them next. I brought one of my old Pyrex measuring cups and dipped a little bit in the tea, so I want you to see kind of what it looks like, how dark it is, because it's hard to see in the bowl. Okay, now it's time to dip the fabric for a little bath. And I just want to make sure it's saturated. I just use my old wooden spoon to push it down in there and kind of move it around a little bit and let that cloth take up the tea. So the longer that you leave it in here, the darker it will be. And because my tea is pretty dark already, I'm not going to leave it in here very long. But I just want to make sure that it's all saturated. Keep in mind that it will dry lighter than it looks when it's wet. And when you pull it out of the bowl, if it looks really super dark and you're like, oh no, then you can always rinse it too and it will go lighter. Let me go grab the package from the original one, and so I can show you the difference. See, it's quite a bit darker, but again, it's going to dry a little bit lighter. Okay, I'm just hanging on to the edge of the fabric here and using my spoon to get it over onto the tray. I don't want to burn myself. I'm just going to move it around a little bit to cool it off enough so that I can handle it, because I will wring it out over the bowl so that I can squeeze out the excess tea. I just wring it out so that it will dry faster, but it's not really necessary. I'm just going to lay the Lugana out on the tray. Here I chose this tray because it's a little bit smaller than the cut piece of fabric, and it will kind of pull it off of the counter and allow air circulation. Now I'm going to dry it a little bit, and after it's almost dry, I'm going to take these tea bags and I'm going to vintage it up. So I'll be back for that when this is just a little bit drier. Okay, now it's just to the point where it's almost dry. You can see how much lighter it is than when it was wet, and this is what the original looks like. So the reason I don't wait until it's completely dry before I take the tea bags and vintage it up, as I say, is because I just want it to stay a little bit damp so that when I rub these tea bags across like this, it just goes across the top fibers and doesn't really saturate all the way through. I mean, I guess it really wouldn't hurt if it did, but I've just always done it like this for years, and I just kind of like it across the surface. This way I feel like I have more control on how dark the color is going. Now, if you see me, breaking up the tea bag and letting these, the tea leaves come out, that's totally on purpose. That's what I want. There's really no right or wrong way to do this. You can do it in circular motions. I tend to kind of go back and forth and up and down and just do in little areas and then come up and get the corner a little bit, and I just keep working it. Okay, after I've rubbed it about as much as I want, I'm just going to take it over here to the sink, shake out some of those tea leaves, and then I'll come back, grab a paper towel, and usually just kind of rub over the top and get those tea leaves off. Once those leaves are off, you can see how much color has saturated in there, and on this one it looks like I want a little bit more, so I grab another tea bag and I just continue on. Now keep in mind that just like when the tea bath dries lighter, this distressing is going to dry lighter as well. But any time that you get to the point where you think, wow, I've just put way too much on it, you can always rinse it off and start again. But I just like little areas in the background of my stitching that are darker and lighter, and I just really like the way that it makes the piece look, and so that's why I do this. Okay, so this little piece of Lugana looks plenty vintage to me. I really like how it's turning out, and as you can see, it just isn't a hard process at all. I'm just going to go get these tea leaves out and rub it off with the paper towel, and then I'm just going to let it dry. I'm over at the sink just kind of shaking these tea leaves off. I don't want to rinse them off because I don't want to get it wet, because I like how dark it is. And so then I'll bring it back over and with the paper towel just kind of rub the remainder of the tea leaves off. And keep in mind, these dark spots are going to dry a lot lighter when the whole fabric is completely dry. I'm just going to put it back on the tray, and then I'm going to let it dry overnight, and then I'll iron it on both sides just to get it nice and flat, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so here is what the 25 count barley Lugana that I showed you how I gave a little tea bath and then just kind of a little scrub with the tea bags. This is how it looks after it's all dried and pressed. So you could wait till it's completely dry to press it, or you can just kind of press it dry at the very end. But I really like how this looks and why I kind of scrub it with the tea bag, because I just kind of want a little mottled look. I don't want it real drastic, but you could just keep doing it more and doing it darker and darker if you like that look for, you know, which project you're doing. Sometimes I do want it more vintaged up, and sometimes I like it, you know, very toned down. So that's what that's going to look like on there. This is what it looked like before I dyed it, so that's quite a difference. It's going to be fun to see this design on different cloths. So here's the call for Weeks Dye Works in the pattern. The sample is done in DMC, but we also give a Weeks Dye Work, and so that's what I'm going to do with mine. I'm going to do the over dyes. And so I wanted to show you how I made this card. All I did was scan the cover of my pattern, and then I cut it out. And of course I did this on cardstock. I cut it out around the blue right here, and then I punched holes in it. I needed 20 holes, so this is a 1/2 inch punch, and you can get those at your scrapbooking. This one happens to be a Stampin' Up one. So I punched holes, and then I took craft paper and I just laid that on the craft paper, traced around it with a pencil, and then glued the craft paper onto the back with a glue stick. And then I just lined up the holes because they were already punched in the front. I lined that up in the back. And then for the names, and I could write them out, but I just scanned the back side too. And then I just went ahead and cut these out, and I just glued them on with the glue stick. And then I'm all ready to go for my stitching with that. And I like how all of these colors look on this floss. I mean, on this fabric. Sometimes when you dye fabric, you might have to change 1 or 2 floss colors, but all of these are going to show up just nice. So I'm going to keep them like that. And then when I'm finished with the project, I saved the tags, and I'll just re-put them back on the little tags and put them in my little cabinet that I keep my overdyed floss in. So that is 2 of the 17. And let me set that aside. There's its bag. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and show you the ones that I had already started. And that's my start right there, and how much I have finished on that. And this is the Scarlet House Hannah's Brownstone. And I started this a while ago, and it looks kind of fallish to me, so I thought I would just add it with my lineup. And I'm using the Called Floor Weeks Dye Works, and that's how much I have finished, and I'm excited to see how much I can finish on this one in the 3 days that I get to stitch it. Okay. The next one is, look how cute that witch is. This is a new chart from Teresa Kogut, and it's in her book. And so I can't open the book to show you because she only has these 2 photos of a finished chart. The rest are just unfinished, so I can't open it and show you, but it's called Bad Kitty. And it has, you know, a house, and it has a lot of pumpkins around here. And I used some of the Called For, and then just kind of threw in a few of the colors that I wanted to use for mine. And let's see, this cloth, let me look at my notes and see what this is. This is 36 count flax linen that I'm doing this on. So that'll be a fun Halloween stitch. Okay, this next one, this is my Prim bag, by the way, and this is my new Prim needle minder. This one is, let me get this bag open. But this is a new one that was released this market by Brenda Gervais, Saltbox Quilt Sampler. And I'm doing this on 36 count, let's see. This is Parchment by Weeks Dye Works. And I know she did hers on 40 count to fit in this box, which I think is really lovely. But I think I will do just kind of a different finish. I have mostly 36 count. Sometimes I stitch on 40, but 36 count seems to be my favorite go-to, and that's what I have mostly in my stash. So that's what I pulled for that, and this is how much I have done, and I believe I called for all of, I'm using all of the called for colors. And again, that some people may not call that autumn, but I do, so that's why it's in my lineup. Okay, this next one I'm doing with one of my really good friends, Christy from Crosshatch Quilt, and this is Feast of Friendship, and that's how much I have done by that. That's by Blackbird Designs, and my fabric on that, again, I have to keep looking at my notes to keep all this fabric straight. Let's see. Oh, this is Wren, 36 count Wren by Picture This Plus. And I'm using all of the called for flosses. I just think they're beautiful. Of course, I, like everyone else, love Blackbird Designs. And when Christy and I do it, we decided that we're going to put our initials here when we finish it. So this is just a really beautiful design, and I can't wait to get stitching on that. Okay, so the last one that I have to show you that I had already started, which this is another one that I had started quite a while ago, and then Christy and I got together and we were stitching, and she saw it and she's like, I need to do that too, let's do it together. She had started it before and wasn't really happy with her cloth, and so she switched up cloth. And I've been doing the shepherd's bush conversion, and I got everything from there. And so of course she called Shepherd's Bush, and of course they were very kind and went ahead and sent her the same conversion, which they will do for you as well. And I just love this stitch. One thing different that I'm going to be doing with this is I'm not going to do the 2 Halloween pieces because I just want to keep it fall. So I'm not going to substitute anything. All of these squares are the same size, so I'll just move these 2 up. And you know, these are really cute. I may do them on a different project, but I just want this to remain fall and not Halloween. But don't you just love these threads? They're so beautiful. And this is on 36 count straw. And I really love how it looks on this color. So who knows when I'll be able to finish with this one, but at least it started, and it may be a year or two before it's finished. Okay, so now these are all just going to be complete new starts. I have not started anything. Sorry about the crinkle. Some of these are out of their bags and some are not yet. So this one is a good old classic prairie schooler, which I love. I've been stitching for so many years, and I think I have almost every prairie schooler pattern there is because, you know, they're awesome. So I'm going to be using one of my brand new 25 count Luganas called Farmhouse, and I really like how this just kind of has a little tiny bit of maybe a pinkish hint to it. It's kind of a creamy pink. And I pulled all the DMCs that were called for and then just threw in a few reds. If I change anything, I'm always changing like a red or maybe a green or something. And so I just threw those in when I start. I'll end up seeing which ones exactly that I use. But that's the Thanksgiving Comes Again by the Prairie Schooler. Okay. This one right here is another one that I'm doing with Kimberly, and this is by Hands On Design, and it's called Let's Talk Autumn. And I love to do text. I really, really love text projects, and so this one really appealed to me, and so of course I had to put it in my lineup. I decided to do it on another one of my brand new cloths called Pebble, and it's 25 count Lugana as well, and I just pulled my own colors that I thought would look nice on the Lugana, but I'm pretty excited about that. I don't really stitch a lot on black. That's just not my style. I think it looks beautiful, but I don't have a lot of black in my home. I just have more of a farmhouse style, and I tend to really like more of a dark gray or something like this that matches my farmhouse fabrics. So I'm pretty excited about that. And we'll see how that turns out and looks on that cloth. Better stick them back in their bags so I don't get them all mixed up. Okay, so this one right here is one that I've been wanting to do for quite a while, and this is Blackbird Inn by Little House Needleworks, and I'm going to be doing this on, let's see, I think here's the tag. I've had this fabric in my stash for quite a while, and I had picked it up at Shepherd's Bush, and it's a 28 count Lugana in sand, and I just threw some colors in out of my stash. You know, it's so hard to get threads now, and a lot of these take such few colors that I'll just grab them from my stash and see what I have that may work. So that's what I'm going to be doing for that project. Pretty excited about that one. Okay, in this bag, this is 36 count raw natural linen. I love this. I use this quite a bit. And I'm doing one of Priscilla's patterns. And this is the Buzz of the Bees, and I bought the floss kit, which is called for the Classic Color Works from Fat Quarter Shop. And I'm going to be doing that and putting it in my kitchen. I love this pattern. I love the little flowers around the chicken's neck. And, you know, because I'm a farm girl raised on a farm, I do love chickens. So all the chickens for me. Okay. See what we've got here. This looks like this is a scrap of 40 count vintage country mocha that I had, And so I thought that would be perfect for this Patchwork Crow by Heart in Hand. And I believe that I'm using all of the called for. I don't think I changed anything up. As I get stitching, sometimes I'll change one or two things, but usually I like to start out with the called for and then see how that's, you know, looking. And this pattern comes with 3 little cute wooden buttons, so that's going to be fun. Okay, oh, this is one that I've been wanting to do for a long time. I just grabbed threads from my stash. Let me see what cloth this is. This is 36 count light mocha. And I just had this little piece here. And I think, yeah, I just grabbed these from my stash. I don't believe that these are the called for. But this is by Not Forgotten Farm. And I just love it. And so I'm excited to get that one stitched. And this is one that I'm thinking I'll be able to finish up in Stitch-Tober, and won't have to roll it around until next year. But I like to do big and small projects, small ones so that I can finish them, and big ones that I can, you know, just keep continuing on stitching, because I really like to stitch fall things during the fall. I like to stitch Christmas during Christmas, fall during fall, and I'm not too worried about finishing that project during that season. I just really like to stitch it during that time and enjoy that process. So this one, the cloth is 36 count American froth, and this is pretty much the called for, I believe. And the pattern, let me take it out of the bag so you can see it better. But this is a new pattern called Quaker Pumpkins by Hello from Liz Matthews. And isn't that beautiful? I really love that. I'm thinking about maybe doing the same thing that I did on Hawk Run Hollow by taking the Halloween elements out of it. Not that I don't like Halloween, but I just like to decorate for fall most of the time, and I keep those decorations out longer, and I don't want to have to take down my Halloween. So I may put another word here instead of All Hallows Eve, so that it could just be for fall. But I love these oranges, and I just think it's going to be beautiful. And I love Quaker stitching, so that's going to be fun. Wow, I'm getting down to my last 3 here. Okay, this one is a chart that I've had for a long time. Again, sorry for the crinkle. This is by Lizzie Kate, and it's Autumn Alphabet, and I'm finally going to get stitching it. And I think I pulled mostly the called for and then just switched out a few colors. I'm going to be using another one of my new colors in the 25 count Lugana. That's Parchment. And I think they're going to look really pretty on that. So again, it's another text. I love to stitch alphabets, so that's right up my alley. Okay. I got these already a couple of weeks ago, so it's kind of like a surprise when I'm opening the bag. Okay, so what we've got here is by Plum Street Samplers, His and Hers Thanksgiving Stockings. This is another one that I've been wanting to make for a while. And this is the linen that I've chosen. Let me look at my notes, tell you what it is. Okay, so this is 36 count beach brew. I thought that's what it was, but I just wanted to make sure before I said. And this is all of the called for. And I'm pretty excited to do that. And then sew them into stockings and put them out for Thanksgiving. Okay, this is my last one. And this is one of my favorites that I've been wanting to do for a long time too. This is Thomas by Not Forgotten Farm. Let me take it out of the bag as well so there's no glare. It's not a very big picture. But what is not cute about that? That is awesome. And I'm going to use Shadow, which is another one of my new 25 count Lugana. And I think he's going to look great on that. And I grabbed a bunch of the DMCs that were called for and then threw in some of my own. And so we'll kind of see how he turns out. I may give him a tea bath afterwards and kind of vintage him up a little bit after I'm finished stitching. And I can do that because this cloth is not dyed and these are DMCs. These are not over dyed flosses. So I literally can dip the whole thing in just for a quick tea bath to really vintage it up. And I think that's what I'm going to do after I finish stitching him. So that's the last of my 17 lineups. Again, Stitch-Tober starts October 1st. I would love it if you joined us and left a comment what you might be stitching. And this is just going to be a fun stitch. Don't feel pressure. Please, you don't have to do 17 projects and start a bunch, you know, like I'm doing. You can just do a few or even just do one. And I just encourage you to enjoy stitching fall during the fall season. And thanks for joining me, and I'll chat with you next time.